Daith da, Obi Nacken. Welcome to podcast number 127. Well, like I often say, another varied week. But 'tin just the type of funerals that's varied, 'tis where we're going now. To give you an example, in the last week, we've cared for families all the way from Tintagel over Luxillian, Sanostal, right the way down to Senan. So 'tis various locations as well as the different types of funerals. We've had quite a few early funerals as well this week, which has mucked up me running. But I'll talk about that in a minute, because I'll just go back to the weekend. Or actually, I'll go back to the end of last week, because I think I recorded last week's episode on the Thursday, and the Friday we had dear Charlotte's funeral. Tragic, very tragic. I've known them really since they moved down here, because Molly was friends with Charlotte's sister, and 'twas a fantastic service. It really was, with leopard skin print everywhere, and she would have loved it. But such a tragic funeral. And then Heather's funeral in the afternoon, again somebody I've known all my life, and 'twas lovely to see some familiar faces there too. On Saturday, you may well have seen, I did put a video on our RJ Bray Facebook page. We had a hearse with a difference. Now, we have had it once before. I did put photos on last year, and it have come from Wales, from our dear friends Jeff and Sean, and 'tis a proper thing. 'Tis an old lorry. I did ask Jeff for the exact details, and I got it here somewhere. Hang on. Right, here it is. 'Tis a Foden FG 6LW. Now, 'twas made in 1956, and 'twas first on the road, licensed January 1957. And 'tis a fantastic old lorry. It really is. I think Jeff was telling me I scribbled down quick, but I didn't get it viddy. But 'tis a 12-speed lorry, and it's got 2 gear sticks. Now, how that works, I don't know. But 'tis a fantastic thing, and we appreciate them coming over from Wales with it. 'Twas brilliant. And the hearse had to go out to the family home at Foxhole, and then we went down to Penmount. And I know the family really appreciated it. And I say, if you haven't seen it, just go on to our RJ Bray Facebook page, and you have to troll back a little bit. But I did put a little video there of the lorry, and it's brilliant how they've adapted it with rollers to make it easy. Once you lift up on the side, you slide on. They've done a viddy job, they really have. So, like I say, that was at Foxhole. We went down to Penmount. 'Twas Pat's funeral, and I think she would have loved it. And her son Arlie, I know he really did. Arlie was allowed to ride there in the cab, and 'twas proper. Really was. So, now we're on to this week. And like I say, we've had a lot of early funerals this week. And it is something I've never been very good for the mornings. I think because over like 40 years or more now, I've had so many night calls, and then I don't know, whenever, I don't sleep very well. So I'm always tired in the mornings, and I never get out of bed. I can work till 10, 11 o'clock at night, no problem. But the mornings was never quite so good. But I have now for the last couple of months, I suppose, got into the habit of going out with Beth, because she'll get up 6 o'clock every morning and take the dogs out in the woods and go for a 4-mile run. And I have been forcing myself, and I don't enjoy getting up. And the first 3.5 miles running, I don't enjoy either. But that last bit of the 4th mile, 'tis brilliant, I must admit. And what we do, I'd say it must be 3 or 4 mornings a week. We'll go down Pobrock and run through the woods. And I tell you what, 'tis pitch black. We got our head torches on there. We're like blooming coal miners with our head torches on, but we're running through. I've had quite a few ankle injuries over the years as well, where I've sprained my ankle. So tin the best sometimes, because if you just turn my ankle a bit, you'll feel the pain there, and I'll yelp out. But this week, 'tis turning, because for the first time, we leave Polbrock, we head towards the moon, and then we turn round, come back towards Bodmin, and do that again. That's 4 miles. And the last 2 or 3 evenings, as we're coming back on that 4th mile, the sun is just coming up. You've still got to use the head torch. So, tin really bright at all. But I tell you what, the one thing that is fantastic is the dawn chorus starts. And 'tis something I've never heard much in all my years, unless I've been out on a call. And 'tis brilliant, because up until this week, you might hear an owl hooting there in the distance. But this week, the dawn chorus starts, and 'tis magical. I must admit, 'tis brilliant. It really is. So I'm looking forward, as we head to summer now, we will hear more of the birds and that. And like I say, I have been out. I remember loads of times you out early in the morning, the birds will start if you're on a call. I remember once we had a call down Poleseth Beach, actually. They've got nothing to do with sounds, but we were there with the police because we was waiting for the pathologist to come down from Plymouth to Poleseth, and he got lost. And the policeman says, "God, look, 'tis a shooting star." And we were more amazed we'd seen a shooting star. It was brilliant. And then they said, "There's another one." And after the third one, somebody did realise it was actually satellites. It was going over twin shooting stars at all. Another thing always sticks in my mind is Port Gavern. And I remember middle of the night, we was Port Gavern. Me and Father went down, and Father said, "I'll just go into the house a minute, check the family's okay." So I waited outside. And that evening is something I'll never forget, because you're down there by the quay, and it's pitch black. You can't see a thing, but the sea is coming in, and there's a boat down there, and you got that clunking sound of metal on wood. I don't know what 'tis, but like when the boats, they rock a little bit in the water, and you hear that clunking sound. And that's something I'll never forget. That was a real magical evening, I must admit, or nighttime. 'Twas middle of the night. But, so anyway, we out, we running, and 'tis getting a bit brighter anyway. Sorry about that, I went off course a bit there. But because we've had early funerals, I haven't always been able to go running some of the mornings this week, which at the time you don't mind, but you do feel afterwards you regret it, because I don't enjoy the running, but for the rest of the day you feel brilliant. But there we are. And of course we had dear Terry's funeral this week in Glyn Valley. Terry's somebody I've known for such a long time, and all his family. Fantastic crowd there too, I must admit. And then Christine's funeral this week as well. Another old character of Weybridge gone on too. Really sad. Right, well, I think I'll stop there now, because I got a brilliant interview. Now, this is with Sue now. Now, I didn't realise Sue is related to half of Weybridge, really. And 'tis brilliant when she starts talking about the family tree, because I couldn't remember what her maiden name was until I was talking to Mooner the day before, and then he came up with it, and Mooner filled me in kind of thing. I couldn't remember her maiden name. But dear old Sue, we got a brilliant episode today. I'm sure you'll love it. And then I'll speak to you directly when we finished. So over to Sue now. Here it is. Get on, Sue. How be knacking?
I'm doing fine, thanks, Dave.
Proper. Thank you, mate. Well, I think, shall us go right back? Well, family tree a bit, really, if that's all right.
Right, okay. Well, I was born up at Trenant.
Yeah.
In the big house at the top, not in Vale.
Right.
Up at the top of the hill. And we lived there with Gran and Grandad. I'm the second daughter of Kitch and Molly Williams.
You're right.
Now, my mum, she was called Gwendolyn Molly Tongs. And she was actually born in the cottage next door to Gunwen Chapel.
Was she really?
Yeah. And you put a picture on your website one day. You've done a funeral out there.
That's right.
Mark said, "Where's that?" I said, "I know where that is." So the next day we got in the car and we went out there and had a look at it.
Yeah.
We met all sorts of people out there. This old chap, it was Sunday morning, this old chap and lady come down over the stairs, and I explained that Mum lived next door. And he said to this lady, "Do you know this lady's mum?" I thought, well, Mum would be 102 if she was alive, so I doubt very much whether you know her. But she did know some of my relatives and that was out there.
God, brilliant.
So, yeah. my gran and granddad. Granddad was called Bernard Toms, and he worked in the clay pits at Snowstall.
Yeah.
And at one time he went off to America to the goldfields.
Right.
As far as I know, he didn't make his fortune.
No.
If he did, I never saw any of it. But Gran, this is a name for her, she was called Floshina Jane Rosewarne Rundle Wilson Dunstan Toms.
Get over.
That was on her death certificate. And she came from, they all came from out around Snowstall Way. And Gran at one time was the cook in St Benet's Abbey when it was a private house.
Yeah.
I suppose this would have been the late 1920s, early 1930s. And there was a doctor in there, and she was a cook in there. That's about all I know about my mum's family.
Yeah.
Now, Dad, to give him his full name, John Henry Kitchener Williams.
The Kitch, yes.
That's why I'm only called Susan, because I was born just after the war. And Dad said that having to write his full name on everything was a bloody nuisance. Excuse my language. So I'm just Susan. Dad was born in Trinant, down in Trinant. My grandmother, his mum, was called Lottie Chapman.
Right.
And her mother was a Gill from over Egglesell. So we all linked up with all the Gill family.
Yeah.
My Gran's dad died when Gran was quite young, and my great-gran married again. And I don't know what he was called other than Grant Vermeger. He was always Grant Vermeger.
Yeah.
And they went off he was a gamekeeper, and they went up to Lanson to live. He was a gamekeeper up there. And Gran and her brother and my Uncle Jack, they went up with him.
Right.
And that's where my Gran met my grandfather Williams, George Williams. So I'm sorry to say, but I always say my left leg comes from Devon. The rest of me comes from Cornwall. Because Grantford came from Lewdown. Only just in Devon, isn't it?
Only just,
yeah. And they was married. I always thought they was married up on Brentor Church, but I think I got that wrong. I think it might have been another one now, but it was up there somewhere.
Yeah.
And my dad's two eldest, I think I'm right in saying my dad's two eldest, his brother and sister, were actually born up there. And then they came home to Wadebridge. And I never knew why they came home to Wadebridge. But then they went to live in Trinant, and the rest of the family was born in Trinant. Grantford, as far as I know, went to work for F&J Martins and looking after the horses.
All right. Yeah.
And Uncle Jack stayed up in Lanson, and he married 3 times. Oh, he was a glutton for punishment or just unlucky. And he had 3 sons, and the 2 youngest ended up down here in Wadebridge with Gran, and she looked after him for several years. I'm a little 2 up, 2 down over Trinant Vale. Although I haven't said she had 7 children, my eldest uncle had left home, and my dad's youngest sister, my Auntie Mabel, is a fortnight younger than my Gran's first grandchild.
Oh, get away.
Yeah. That was Joyce Witt, who lived over Egglesell. Glen Road.
Glen Road, yeah.
So that's where Dad was born and brought up, there with all his brothers.
So can you run through all his siblings then, or no?
Yeah. My Uncle George.
Yeah.
That's George and Sid Williams' dad.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah.
And he went up country to live, up country. He actually lived in Crowthorne in Berkshire, and he ended up working at Sandhurst Military College.
Did he? Yeah.
He was in maintenance there. Then there was my Auntie Mary, which was Kath Buscombe's mum.
Oh, yes.
Then there was my Auntie Anne. She was Aunt Anne Harvey, and she lived over Bedeve, and she had that little shop that was over Bedeve. I don't know if you remember that.
No.
Where there's the row of council houses, the 6 council houses there.
Yes, I know, yeah.
And it was the second one up from the bottom, and she had a little shop in the garden. Her husband, my Uncle Reg, was he worked for Basil Davy.
Yeah.
And he was taken ill. I think he had a bad heart or something, and he couldn't do that work anymore. So Aunt Anne had to earn some money, so she started this little shop in the garden. In a little asbestos shed, if ever you did.
Oh, get away.
Yeah. And, well, I'm going on a bit further. When I was about 11, I used to go over there on a Saturday morning and help her in the shop and help her clean the house and do all that. Got £0.50 a week for doing that. Then there was Uncle Howard, and he lived up to where we lived. Mm-hmm. And then there was my dad. Then there was my Uncle Jim, lived over Glen Road.
Yeah.
And then me Auntie Mabel Courts.
All right,
Yeah, and they lived in Trinant. So when Mum and Dad first got married, just before the war, they lived on Egglesell Road, number 58.
Right.
They're just beside the phone box.
Yes, I know.
And when Dad came home from the war in 46, he said he couldn't live down there because the road was too noisy and he couldn't sleep.
Oh, no.
I've often thought, what would he be like now if he was living there? So my gran and granddad lived up in Trinant House, and they've moved up there. And, you know, the house is sort of an L shape.
Yeah.
And they lived in the piece that faced down the road, and Auntie Connie and Uncle Harold lived in the other piece there.
Oh.
And so Mum and Dad moved up there to be with them, and I was born up there. Mum and Dad, I don't know how Mum and Dad met, although Uncle Howard, his wife, and Mum are sisters.
Oh, right.
So it might have been something to do there. But when Dad met Mum, he was working up Delabole Slate Quarry.
Right.
And he used to cycle up to Delabole every day, cycle home again,
Get away.
have his tea, wash and change, and cycle out. My mum lived out Bugle then.
Oh, mate.
And he used to go out Bugle to see
And those are heavy push bikes.
yeah,
back then,
they
weren't
were, yeah. And the roads weren't as good as they are now. But Mum eventually came into Wadebridge to live. She came into service in Wadebridge. I suppose this would have been early, middle 30s.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, as you go up over Gonvina Hill, just before you get to the top, there's a turning into the right, and there's a house, big house, red roofs. And she was in there.
Ah.
And the lady that she was in service to was called Mrs. Fishwick.
Right.
And her son was Bernard Fishwick. And he was an announcer on the BBC Wireless.
Get away.
It wasn't the radio then, it was the wireless.
Yeah.
And he was an announcer on there. That's my claim to fame.
Yeah.
So as you went out the back of that house, there was a footpath that went from Trinant House, and you could go right down and go down the steps beside Simmons and Macmillan.
Yeah, I know.
And as you went at the back of this Mrs. Fishwick's house, there was a great big tree.
Right.
And for years and years, there was on there, KW loves TM.
Okay.
And there's another one out Slade's Woods as well. My father was a defiler of trees.
Oh.
I dare say it's grown over by now, but that was there for a long time. Yeah. Yeah, so, I was, as I say, born up there. It was lovely up there, really, because Auntie Connie and Uncle Harold lived next door, and Auntie Mabel and Uncle John lived down the bottom.
Yeah.
Me, Auntie Mary and Uncle Clifford lived across the road, so we was all there together, and kids and that playing together and everything. I was a lot younger than the rest of them, so I was a bit of a nuisance.
Right.
Just, I was always tailing on behind them. Wait for me. But we had a lovely childhood up there. We used to go out. We'd be out summer holidays 9 o'clock in the morning and come home again 5 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Mother'd give us a few sandwiches or a couple of bits of bread and butter, and off we'd go.
Yeah.
And nobody'd worry anything about us. I remember at Easter we would go off either over in Bedeve Woods or up other side of Sladesbridge picking primroses.
Right.
And up where my Uncle George lived, up in Berkshire, there wasn't any primroses. So Gran would have a box ready, lined in wet cotton wool.
Right.
And these primroses would go in the box, and they'd go in the post office, and up they'd go up to Berkshire to my uncle. And he'd get them next day.
Yeah.
There wasn't all this delay that they had these days. Down around the corner from where we lived, there's 2 bungalows there now. When I was a child, there was an galvanised bungalow,
Right.
painted green. And people called Shaw lived there when I was a child. And they had the shop over on the Platte where Aston's Carpets was.
Yes.
And it was a sort of gift shop. And I think they had a bit of a photographic studio there and things like that there. And then they left, and people called Mr. and Mrs. Sloggett came there, Harry and Annie.
Right.
And they were retired farmers from out Withiel. I think they come from out Blackhay Hill.
Oh,
in there
yes.
somewhere.
Yeah.
And they was a dear old couple. And Mrs. Sloggett, bless her, she had false teeth. And it was a bit loose, and she used to stand talking to her with her hand under her chin to get her false teeth. And you wouldn't listen to what you were saying. You was waiting for her false teeth to fall out. Oh, but they were a lovely couple. My granddad died when I was 5. And Gran decided she was going to get a television. Right. So she saved up out of her old age pension, and she got a television. I think I was about 6 and a half, something like that, when the television arrived. And we were the only ones up there with the television. And if there was anything special on the telly, like FA Cup final was the one, everybody'd come up from Shenant Vale, the front room. The kids would be on the floor, and then there'd be more comfortable chairs, then there'd be the dining room chairs. The table would be pushed back against the wall, and somebody would be sitting on the table. There'd be 25, 30 people in there watching. It was great fun. And I also remember the 1966 Cup final. Well, by this time, a lot more people had televisions, and there weren't so many people. But I'm telling you about Mr. and Mrs. Sloggett, and they came up to, never had television, and they came up to watch the 1966 Cup final with us. And as they won the last goal, we all went, yes! And Mrs. Loggins' came out. Oh, dear, things you remember. I started school when I was 5, then at Baybridge School. Yeah. And Mum took me and picked me up for the first couple of days. And then my sister, Kay, was supposed to bring me home after that.
So she was older than you?
Yeah, she's 6 years older than me, yeah. And she and my Uncle John and Auntie Mabel's Veronica, and they were supposed to bring me home. Well, I think they did it for 2 days, and after that I was on my own. But walking along Eggersale Road then was, although there wasn't so many footpaths as there is now, you'd see about 3 cars. Mm. And one of them would probably be my Uncle Clifford, just everybody you knew. Yeah. When I was 7, I started in the Brownies, which was up St Mary's Hall.
Oh, yes.
Dinah Worden was Brownell. And I used to go with Caroline Ralston. We would walk from Eggersale up to St Mary's Hall on our own, summer and winter. And Mum and Dad always said, if anybody comes along and you don't like it, you're a bit frightened, go into the nearest house. They will know you and you'll know them and they will bring you home. I wouldn't have said that to my children 50 years ago. No. Certainly wouldn't say it to the kids now.
No, exactly.
Definitely wouldn't. But in the winter, I didn't like walking up the last bit because there was no street lights after the bottom of Trinant Hill.
Right, yeah.
So Dad used to come down either to the top of the hill or by that time Rolf and Pam Poconorn lived in the bungalow and they'd go in there and wait for me to bring me home. I was a bit older. Just thought about this. I was a bit older. Must have been about 10 or 11 when I'd been out somewhere. And I came home. It was a beautiful evening, a real cold, frosty evening, clear as a bell. It was quite light, really. But Dad got held up and I started walking up along the top and suddenly I heard this most unholy row. And I thought, what the hell is that? Don't think I've ever gone up that road so fast in all my life. And I got in and Mother said, whatever's the matter? I said, there's an awful noise down the road. There's someone down there. Oh, I forgot to tell you, they put a load of ponies in the field down there. They must have been paying at the moon or something. Yeah. Life anyway. Because we all lived there together, in the summer, we used to go off to the beach together. And Dad had a car, which he used to tax and insure only for 6 months of the summer. Right. And we would go off down to Paulseth on a Sunday afternoon. And there'd be Uncle Howard and Auntie Connie and David and me and Mum and Dad and Gran, Auntie Mabel and Uncle John and Auntie Rita and Uncle Jim and Janet and Angela. And we'd all be there together, great big over Tristram car park. We'd take off a great big area there. And Dad had a surfboard made. Was it Brian Bate? I think he was called in Bridgeview. We used to make them.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
We had our surfboards made. And I was one morning about 8 or 9 and I'd be out with my dad and Uncle Howard out as deep as they were, up here.
Get away.
And we'd be out for hours. No wetsuits or anything like that, just ordinary bathing costumes. And we'd come back in after, we'd be out for 2 or 3 hours, coming in, all hands all wrinkled and water soaked. And Dad would get out the Primus.
Right.
And he'd light up the methylated spirits, and he'd boil up the kettle. Mum would have got up at the crack of dawn and made us all pasties, and we would sit there on pasties. And we always had Sunday lunch before we went, always had our roast Sunday lunch early. We had it early in the summer. And then we'd go, and very often in the summer we'd be down there till 9:30. And we'd be playing, as time was out, we'd be playing football or cricket and all this here, all proud of us. But when we got home, Mum would have done more roast potatoes than was necessary. So they would all be chopped up and we'd have chopped up tomatoes and they'd add salt and pepper and vinegar put on them. That was supper before we went to bed on a Sunday night. I sorted out the comprehensive. I took my 11 plus, but I didn't pass it. And I wasn't at school when the results come out because I had tonsillitis. Right. And in those days, we never had antibiotics or anything. No. You was home for a fortnight and you had this horrible stuff that you had to gargle with and made your tongue and your lips go all black. So I wasn't at school when the results came out, but I never passed. So I went up to the comprehensive school. And Dad and Mum, they never made me feel as though I was a failure. My sister went to the grammar school, but I was never made to feel that she was better than me. No. Dad always said it's better to be able to cope at a lower level than be up a higher level and struggling. Yeah. And I did quite well at comprehensive school. I was top of the stream for 3 years that I was up, 3 of the 4 years that I was up there. And by that time, you'd have your careers evening and all this. And because I was doing quite well, all the only career advice I got was, you better go down to Camborne to study something down there.
Yeah.
A couple of years previous to me doing that, you would go down Camborne and stay.
Oh, I see.
But then they started bringing in buses.
Yeah.
I would very often be car sick going from Weybridge to Polseth, and the thought of going back and forth to Camborne every day put me off. So I said, no, I ain't going to do that. So Kath Poconorn, she worked down for Caves down in Pulmola Road.
Yeah.
And the girl that she worked with had just got married and left, and they was looking for somebody else. So I went down there to work. And I learnt my trade as a tailor down there.
Yeah.
I wasn't an apprentice. I was a learner.
Yeah.
If you were an apprentice, you earned less money than if you was a learner. But the only thing is that I haven't got a bit of paper at the end of it to tell me. But in that trade, if you can do it, you can do it.
Yeah.
And you don't need the bits of paper and that to go with it. So I worked there for several years. Well, I worked there for 10 years until Sasha was born. Going back a bit, when I was 13, my friend Barbara up at Egglesale Village and I used to look after Les Cleeve's 2 children,
Right.
Philip and Debbie. And one October half term, we had Philip and Debbie and we brought them down into town. Now, this was when they was doing up the town hall. And Les was over in the town hall and Philip saw his dad and he shouted, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy." So I went across the road with him and I took him into the town hall and there was this young apprentice in there sitting on a bit of wood. And he since told me that he saw me walk in the door and he said to somebody, "That's the girl I'm going to marry."
Oh, get away.
Yes. And if you look up on the back of the stage, there's a painting of the bridge.
Yes, I know.
And there's a man on horseback.
Yeah.
And Vic Harvey painted it. And Peter was sitting on a bit of scaffold one day looking down like that. And Vic said, "Stay like that." So that horseman is
Really?
Peter. Yeah,
Get
that's
away.
Peter up there. Yeah. We started going out when I was about 14.
Yeah.
And we got married when I was 19.
Yeah.
We did all sorts of stupid things. I was only saying to Terry at the funeral last week, the stupid things we got up to. We would go down the Blue Lagoon down Newquay, leave from the Bridge on Wool, stop at the Golden Ball or the Silver Ball in St Callum for refreshments, and then we go down to Newquay. At that time, in the 60s, all closed by 9 o'clock, by midnight.
Yeah.
So then we'd get in, it was always in Terry's car, and we'd go back to the Port and Starboard at Indian Queen's for refreshments before we come on home. Yeah. And that was most Saturdays we did that.
Yeah.
Other times we'd perhaps go up to the other side of Camelford, or way up the other side of Camelford. There was a place up there that did chicken in the basket. Oh. And you'd go up there and have chicken in the basket. Stupid things you do when you're young. Peter and I got married in 1968 over at Egglesale Church in November. It was a horrible bloody day. Well, we got married in November.
Yeah.
I don't know, but we did. And we went to live in Fernley Road, number 4, Fernley Road. And we had a ground floor flat. It belonged to Mr. Cave, this place did.
Yeah.
And the flat upstairs was Tony Parsons' mum lived up there. And then she moved out and Dave and Bren Truscott moved in.
Oh, yeah.
And Michael was born there. And then Sue and Roy Arnold moved in.
Cool.
We then all decided to... we heard they were building bungalows, selling plots up at Meadowhead. So we went up there and built our own bungalow, block by block.
Because Peter was a carpenter?
He was a carpenter, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've missed anything out that I wanted to tell you. I will just go back.
Yeah. Because I can remember, because Peter did the extension over Glen Road for Mother and Father.
That's right.
And he worked with Jeff Jago.
That's right, yeah.
That's right.
Until Jeff Jago died.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Sue. That was proper. Really was. I've been looking because 'twas interesting there where Sue said about the huge painting, the mural that's there in the town hall in Wadebridge. 'Tis a fantastic painting. And I knew somewhere I've got a photocopy of a photo of the painting. But I was trying to think where I'd found it. And I have looked, and there's a photo of me. I'll try and put it in the comments when I do me podcast, because I always put my podcast on my personal page and on the RJ Bray Facebook page. But I will try and put a photo. It's of when I'm in the group playing in Federation, who do the music at the beginning and the end, which is about 1979, 1980, the photo. And you can see this picture behind us. And 'tis absolutely brilliant. And it looks like it's a painting of when they're building the bridge. And they're all dressed there like in Robin Hood's time sort of thing or something like that. 'Tis a fantastic thing. And there is, you can see on top of the bridge, there's a man looking down on horseback. And I thought it was brilliant that Sue said that the painter based that on Peter, her late husband. And I thought that was brilliant. So I will put that photo on just for you to look at, because 'tis really good. So what we'll do, I say we will have more from Sue again next week. Now, before I go on to my Cornish word and that, one thing I forgot to say earlier was Phil Tremaine. With the last 2 episodes we did with Phil, they went down really well. And Phil have got in touch with me since, and he said there's still a lot I could talk about that I didn't think of at the time. So I said, right, I'll keep you up my sleeve, and then we'll get it back on. So Phil will be on again in the near future for another episode. But I did have a lovely message from John Benalek, and he was talking about hurling and his childhood memory when they were young after the hurling, or after the hurl, as he said. And the children would go into the institute for silver cocoa. And that's where the winner would dip the silver bowl into a large jug. And he said, likewise, everyone would have a silver beer as each pub was visited around the town. And I take it they would put the silver bowl in the beer, a jug of beer, I would think. And John was saying it was quite funny because one of his relatives who had never been into a pub before, and he didn't have a clue of the cost of a pint, he joined the crowd. And there was a collection made for a barrel of beer. And John's relative, he only put in a 2p. And it was quite funny because the collector handed it back to him and said, take it, you may need it. And of course, everybody laughed because the 2p weren't very much at all. But of course, John's relative, he didn't have a clue how much a barrel of beer cost. And that was a lovely story from John. And I hope you're doing well, John. And thank you for sending that in. So for me Cornish word of the week, I can't remember. I might have done this before. Michelle, you might have to tell me this if you're listening, because I can't remember. But seeing we're talking about the picture of the bridge there in the town hall, I thought I'd do the Cornish word for bridge, which is ponds. Ponds. And then my Cornish dialect, Sue come up with one which I could remember, but I remember it a little bit different. And that's if you like, you got a cup of tea or something, and it goes up, you kind of, well, what should I say? You're a bit clumsy with it, say that, a bit clumsy, and the tea, say, is going over the edges, or if 'tis a pint of beer, and the beer is going over the edges. And Sue come up with a word for that, and she said floxing. She said, your tea's floxing everywhere. Well, when I was young, I can remember it as fluxing. And you say, here, be careful, your blimmin' tea's fluxing everywhere, or your beer is fluxing everywhere. So I think that'll be my Cornish word for the week, dialect that is, floxing or fluxing. Up to you. Right, well, that's it for this week. Sorry I've gone on a bit too long, but I thought it was a brilliant episode, as they all are. I love them. I do love this. I can see me, hopefully in 30 years' time, sat in a nursing home somewhere, listening to these, and thinking what a boring bloke he is. Right, well, I'm going to leave you now anyway, and I'll speak to you next week. So, wish you well, do ganas, Carnobus Ficken.